Welcome back, everyone, to Bowlero Auburn. We're here in Auburn, Massachusetts, and we're here for the DJs Pro Shop Non-Champs Finals Round of 8. We are down to the top 8 players. Sarah and I have made our picks for the champions. So far, I picked Brendan Malone, and she took a wonderful player, Mike Rubin, and Rubin is actually bowling Paul Bajorski, it looks like, on 39 and 40, and we'll be tracking these matches for you. We did shift to the higher end of the finals pairs, so we're going to be using 37 through 44 for this round, and then we'll come back to the 31 through 34 for the semifinals. So tracking the matches here for you, right in front of us on 37 and 8 is going to be Brandon Vallone, coming off a win against Jesse Gibson. Oh no, excuse me, against Andrew Robitaille, and Jeremy Hartberger coming off the win against Jesse Gibson. And we'll see how these guys go. Jeremy coming off a big game. Jesse making no mistakes, but Jeremy popping 250, I think, against him, and Brandon with a big game as well. So this should be a very interesting match here. And Brandon gets that crumbling bucket, and great shot there. Moving up to 39 and 40, it is the aforementioned Mike Rubin against Dave Hannigan. And Hannigan coming off a win against Paul Bajorski. Or is it? No, sorry. It's Paul Bajorski there. Looks like we had that information. Looks like Bajorski won that match, actually. So, happens. Paul Bajorski against Mike Rubin. And moving on to 41 and 2, it is Kyle Egan coming off a win against Chris Baker. Against Zach Bogots had a big game against Stone Bouchard. So it'll be Kyle against Zach. And then finally up on 43 and 4, it will be Scott Hartnett. Scott bowling very well after just barely making the cut against Bill Beck, who won a squeaker against Tyler Hearn, and a very tough match down here on 31 and 2. So 31 and 2 not playing very easy. 33 and 4 had some big games on it. 35 and 6 is going to be really interesting when we get to it. And let me introduce my returning guest here, Sarah. Hey, Sarah Gill, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you so much for coming back, and for coming back on the live stream and coming back from Louisiana. So great to have you here. And how do you like this weather, huh? Did you bring it with you?
I mean, maybe. It's like this every day in Louisiana, so it's nothing different for me.
Is it more humid down there? How does it?
Yeah, it's pretty humid.
Yeah.
Some days are better than others. I mean, Corey and I also live on a big lake, so we also get a lot of humidity off of that.
Wow, nice.
But
is this a lake with a dock and with fishing and
so
like that?
When Ida hit New Orleans last year, all the docks are still kind of
oh, no kidding.
demolished.
Really that bad?
Yeah.
You can see Mike Rubin right off to the right. Look at his game. So beautiful. Reminds us of Mike Fagan. And covers up the 2-pin there on that shot. And there's Jeremy Hartberger on 37 and 8. He was throwing that Zen, but it looks like he might have. Is that a ball up to the Helios? Looks that way.
Ooh.
Yeah,
looks like it.
Got this pair a little tighter, maybe. So let's see. What do we have? 2 lefties left. Yes. Jason Cornog just lost. Yeah, he lost to Mike Rubin. And Bajorski survives. And Brandon Malone. So I think it's 2 lefties in a generally acknowledged as a lefty house, but only 2 lefties left. I picked Brandon to win. And you took Mike. So how do you find the coaching gig down there? Is it how much actual coaching are you doing versus, working the dynamics of the team and all that kind of stuff? Because I've heard a lot of stories about that job.
Oh yeah,
what you have to do. So
I found the position after I bowled the Queens. I reached out to my old college coach and I was like, hey, this is what I want to do full time. So next year I'm planning on bowling a majority of the tour stops. Probably not going to bowl the West Coast stops or Iowa, but you never know when that time comes. We'll figure it out. But I reached out to her, and she was like, well, Haley's still looking for an assistant at Tulane. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
Wow.
I had my interview right before I left to go bowl the U.S. Women's Open at Kingpin Alley, and then it's history from there.
Look at you. Now, do you know how many people you were up against for the job?
Not really. I know she had, I think it was 2 people before me.
Is that right? Wow.
But I guess that was pretty early on in the hiring process, so the posting was up since March.
And who exactly wouldn't take you? Let me ask you that.
I don't know.
Not that we're very biased, but we're biased. So, Now, Jeremy Hartbarger has got a washout here that he converts, but nonetheless, he's got 3 spares, and Brandon right off to a quick double here. And meanwhile, Mike Rubin down because Paul Bajorski has got the triple going against him. So the 2 lefties are doing well in their matches so far. And how many events have you had so far?
We've competed in 4 events so far.
Wow, getting right to it.
Yeah.
Wow. It's only November, right?
It is only November. We're super busy. We have our last one of the first semester next week in Delaware.
Uh-huh.
So,
wow,
in Millsboro.
Back. Wow,
yep.
Great. Well, it's a little bit of a drive, but could come down and maybe see that. Good for you. Now, do you fly to these places? How does this work?
Yeah, so we only drove to 2 of our tournaments, and those are the only 2 on the whole calendar that we're technically allowed to drive to.
Really?
So Tulane put in a policy in place that we're not allowed to drive more than 3 hours. So our first tournament was right at 2 hours and 59 minutes, so we were able to drive to Pensacola.
Now, did you have to speed to do that, or how did that work?
I just sat in the passenger seat, that's all.
Okay.
Sat in the passenger seat and enjoyed the ride.
There you go.
So we bowled in Pensacola, and then we had our home tournament back in New Orleans. And then we were in New York at Coram Lanes out on Long Island. And then we were in Houston.
Meanwhile, Brandon Vallone comes back and throws his 3rd and 4th one, getting that mixer working. He's got so much forward roll. Ball's got a lot of power when it gets to the pocket. So good for him. And we have to, normally in the round of 8, we don't need the official live streaming binoculars, Sarah, but since they're at the high end and it was hard for us to move our equipment, we do. That's Kyle Egan going through the beak for a 4-6. And let's see how he's doing in his match. Meanwhile, Mike Rubin flags a 4-pin.
Yeah, my pick's not looking too hot.
Not looking too hot there. But again, he's got the triple working for Paul Bajorski, so certainly feeling some pressure there. No doubt about it. And here's Hartnett coming up light. And Jeremy Hartbarger just left an amazing blower 6-pin. What? That's just not right. And usually that represents some kind of a bad rack when you see something like that. And Bajorski, meanwhile, flushes another one for front 4. So he's looking strong. It will be Bajorski against the winner of the Bill Beck-Scott Hartnett match. And Brandon will face, if he beats Jeremy, the winner of the Kyle Egan-Zach Bogholtz match. And that was ill-timed for Jeremy. He makes a good shot, puts it in the pocket, desperately needs a strike, and gets the blower 6-pin for the right-hander. That's just not right. There's Bajorski for the front 5. And yes, sir. No doubt about any of those. Looking strong, very calm. And it looks like he's in a little bit, pitching it, coming around the pattern just a hair. And let's see, can we see how we're doing way at the end? Let's see how Bill Beck's doing at the high end there.
Looks like he's working off of a split and an open frame.
You might be right about that, yep. And meanwhile, his opponent is clean with a double. So Bill Beck definitely down, just left a 7-pin. So
he definitely just ball changed to the purple hammer too.
Did he? Okay. He's down at least 20 plus count. And that, of course, is against Scott Hartnett. He just barely made the cut and been putting up some numbers. So Scott's having a good final. Great to see these new faces out here, Sarah. And Obviously, we know no one's won, but it's interesting. Another mixer by Brandon, but couldn't get this one to go. Leaves a 10-pin. So Brandon has that light pocket hit patented. Pretty much all he's doing. So is the team sponsored by any ball company or
yeah, so
like that, or?
We're sponsored by Brunswick.
Nice.
So
seven brands to choose from? Right
yeah,
there?
so the girls all just switched over from Storm and Roto 900 Global last year.
Yep.
So we officially signed the contract back in July to switch over companies. So
that could be a transition. It's definitely some personality, even though across brands, between Storm and Brunswick. Storm generally higher RG, a little more jumpy, a little more active, down the lane. So, but not that you can't recreate those reactions. It's just
right.
Yeah. So. Bill Beck did finally figure out how to strike, but Hartnett's coming up. Let's see how this Zach Buchholz match is going. And let's see, using the official binocular official focus bar. We are looking at Zach clean through 5 with a split conversion. He's in the 90s, and his opponent is at 88. So that's a 5-pin match there on 39 and 40, Sarah. Well, I saw Jeff Bartlett earlier. I thought he might join us on the live stream, but it looks like he might have bugged out, went home. And a couple other folks cheering some folks on. Stephen Major is here. Second vice president. He'll become first vice president in the first of the year. Meanwhile, Brandon Malone through the beak with a 247, converts it easily. And Jeremy Hartbarger working on a strike. This would be an ideal time to put a second strike together and try to close this gap here against Brandon. He's going back to the Zen, Sarah. He went to that idle Helios, not even on the rack anymore. He just went back to the Zen, and let's see what he does. Flushes it. Great shot by Jeremy there. He's like, why did I ever leave the Zen? He's wondering. Why did I? This is who I brought to the dance, and then I switched partners. So why did I do that? So are you going to bowl PWDA events coming up this year?
Yeah, so
the schedule's out.
It is out.
Yeah, that's great.
The cat is out of the bag.
Yeah.
I'm definitely planning on bowling the Queens out in Vegas to start off the season.
Which is when?
Sometime in the middle of June. I have it in my calendar.
Oh, middle of June. Okay, so
yeah.
So nothing really until then.
Yeah, so the first 2 stops are basically in May on the West Coast.
Okay. So you're off pretty much for the winter, and they pick up summer.
Yeah, but they're actually adding, they'll have 9 regionals this year.
Wow, great.
They announced 2 of them.
This is the South, right? This is the Southern region.
They go all over the country.
Midwest. Oh, okay.
All for the PWBA.
Oh, okay. There's no central. It's not like a PBA.
No, so they did announce that they'll start off in March, I believe. Yeah. And then they'll go from there. They announced one in December of next year at the ITRC.
Now, there are conflicts between when you have to coach and when you get to bowl. I mean, how does that get resolved?
Yeah, so as of right now, I'm not going to be able to bowl the first 2 regional events.
Okay.
Other than that, I mean, the big tour stops, those are all in the summer, so we'll be done competing by then, and they'll wrap up before the girls come back to campus for
and you, of course,
fall
and Shannon
semester.
O'Keefe and some other folks who are.
Yeah, it's the ideal schedule, really.
Yeah, sure is. Even for working folks, you look at the summer, a beautiful shot there by Brandon. Even for working folks, a little bit easier to get some time off and things like that in the summer. And that. Do they try to work the events around the weekend?
Some of them.
Because that's one of the things about the PBA 50 that they really try to do. Can't always do it, but they really now. Mike Rubin just lost. He just moved in, tried to go right, comes up 2-8-10. So he's in deep trouble now in his match against Paul Bajorski. Yeah, I mean, they try to make it, practice on a Friday, then qualifying, and then so you two days of qualifying. If you make the cut, it's Monday final, so you take one day off. You know, if you can't practice, fine, but you take one day off Monday because you're in the finals.
Right.
You know, so you get away with that. Now they do that on a couple of tournaments. They can't always accommodate because again, the houses sometimes have trouble giving up all their weekends, right? So,
Oh yeah.
So it's always this balancing act of when the house can give you lanes and things like that. So.
Yeah, the tour stops are typically a little longer. I know, like in Michigan, it's probably like a week long. It's a classic series, so it's 3 separate tournaments in one.
So it is like a World Series
Yeah.
type thing. And Paul Bajorski, ho-hum, missed once, comes back and doubles. He will advance and come back down to bowl. We did mention the winner of the match that he would bowl earlier. So is Corey, that's the Central region, right? Now what's he doing for regionals down there?
He actually gave up his card a couple weeks ago.
Did he really?
He did.
Wow, that's interesting. Because it's easier to bowl amateur stuff in that area?
Yeah, so there's literally amateur tournaments every single weekend. Every single weekend I'm on the road, he's bowling something, whether it's in Houston or it's actually in New Orleans itself.
And are there a lot of PBA restrictions on some of those tournaments?
Not really. I mean, but the closest regionals to us are all like Houston and stuff. And
I was going to say, because that's Central region.
Yeah.
I know there's an over-under at Houston, and Andrew and I actually flew to bowl once.
Yeah, I think there's one like right before Thanksgiving, or it's right before he's planning on flying home for Christmas. But he'd rather just come home, so.
Well, good for him. It sounds like a strategic decision. I was wondering if he was thinking about touring next year, but he's going to stay working? What's he going to do?
He's going to stay working as of right now. I know he's planning on bowling the Masters. He has that situated.
Okay.
He's bowling.
That's sold out in about 10 hours, by the way.
I know, crazy.
Masters, so.
I know he's bowling nationals with Caitlin Johnson and her boyfriend in March.
Nice.
So.
Jeremy Hartbarger pretty much out of wood here. 60-82 teen. Brandon would need 2 marks to shut out at this point. And he's got ball in hand right now for the 9th and 10th. So we'll be seeing the end of this match here. And Paul Bajorski is going to cruise to his victory. Let's see how we're doing further up the pike here. So 195 to 2-0. Close match here. But Zach just put a triple together on 41 and 2. So looking strong in that match. That puts him about 20 ahead, does Zach. And Paul Bajorski, no problem. Now this Bill Beck match. What's happening at the very end here? Bill Beck with a possible 217 and his opponent possible 2-0. So Bill Beck actually looking good now. Gets the strike. Bill Beck has made an impressive comeback in that match. He's come back and thrown a double, a spare, another double. And meanwhile, his opponent missed a single pin and has failed to double. So Bill Beck has made quite a comeback. That's way up on 43 and 4. And I believe Bill Beck can close out this match with another strike. One more hit here. I believe it is over. It may actually already be over. And he gets the strike, so Bill Beck will advance and come down to 33 and 4 and bowl Paul Bajorski. And looking like, let's see how Zach is doing. Brandon got his first mark. He goes 9 spare. Needs one more mark and dead flushes it. That's the match. And congratulations to Brandon Vallone, who will move on to face the winner of the Kyle Egan, Zach Burkholz match. And that match is still in doubt.
It looks like Zach has that game.
Yeah, Zach came back and tripled there towards the end. Finishing with 2:32, is that right?
Looks like it.
Looks like he went back 4. And meanwhile, Kyle Egan with 2:0 only. So it's like we pretty much have our semifinalists here. It will be Zach against Brandon. It will be Paul Bajorski against Bill. One lefty out of the 4, and pretty balanced crew here. We'll see how we do. So, and Brandon closes out 2:25. We'll watch Jeremy finish his game, and we'll sign off, and we'll be back for the semifinals. And Jeremy's like, where was that? I mean, Jeremy was so close. I mean, he just had 2 misses towards the end in the 7th and the 9th. If he gets those, he wins. So he gave it a run, but we'll watch Jeremy close this out. So anything else you're going to be bowling up here? Well, you're leaving tomorrow. So
Yeah, thinking about bowling tomorrow. There's a Baker doubles at Gardner for the association.
Oh, okay.
So thinking about swinging by with Corey's dad, bowling it.
Fun. Would be, of course, the venerable Dave Umbrello. Dave and I go way back.
Oh, yeah.
To my my college years. That would be in the 70s. I'm sorry to say. The exploits are legendary and will not be repeated here. But Dave, one of the great guys in the game, and Jeremy goes by that. So, okay, we'll sign off. We'll be right back. We'll move the Mevo back down here to 31 through 34, and we'll be back for the round of 4. Thanks, guys.